everyone, welcome to part 2 of my Willow bra classic style sewing pattern tutorial. Man, that's a mouthful. Okay, so in this tutorial I'm just going to show you how to add all your elastics, basically finish the bra. But if you've missed the first part of this video and you want to know how we got this far, then check out the link. I will put it in the description down below for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply the band elastic along the bottom of the bra. I'm using a plush picot elastic here, and this is for the band. This is a 12mm width, just for reference for you. So I'm going to cut this 6 centimeters shorter than the bottom edge of the bra. So the way I'm going to do this, it's just very simple. Is I basically just lay the elastic on the top and go all the way along the band. Just there we go. Just keep going all the way to the end. And so that would be the length that I would cut my elastic if I was cutting it the same length. So I'm just going to take my tape measure here and work out that 6 centimeters is there. So I'm going to cut, with really blunt scissors. Oh dear, I think I need to sharpen them. There we go. So I've cut my elastic to the right length now. So what I'm going to do now to make sure that the elastic is sewn on evenly, because that's another thing you want to make sure that you do to make your bra look really perfect. So fold your elastic in half and mark that centre point with a pin. So as we sew this, basically we want the pin to end up at the centre front seam. That way we know we've got an even amount sewn on each side. So to sew the elastic to the fabric, I'm going to put the straight edge of the elastic to the raw edge of the fabric like that. I've got my machine set to a 3-step zigzag stitch, which is what you really want for elastics, things like that. So I've got the width set to 4 and the length set to 2.5. So before I start stretching or anything like that with the elastic or fabric, I'm just going to do a few stitches to hold this all in place at the end. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is place my pin to the centre front seam and then just pull this so the elastic then meets the same length of the fabric. I'm not going to pull both of them so the fabric is stretched as well. It's just the elastic until it sort of meets the length of the fabric, and then I'm just going to sew, keeping this straight edge of the elastic to the edge of the fabric. You really might feel like you need 3 hands for this, and this is when it helps if you've basted your lining as well, because it will all just go under the foot with no problem at all, and you won't have to worry that you've missed part of your lining. You do sort of want to sew close to sort of the inside edge as well, the inside edge of the elastic. Can give it a little hand through, because you're pulling on it from this way, it might struggle a little bit, so just give it a little bit of guidance through the machine. It might be grateful for. Keep going until you get to the centre front. Remove your pin and then basically just do the same, but instead of like a pin, I'm taking the end of the centre back seam and the end of the elastic and then just stretching those so the elastic is the same length of the fabric. Or as the fabric. Terrible grammar, there we go. And just keep sewing. Might want to keep readjusting. You will feel like you need more hands than you have for this. There we are, you can see that it's sewn on to obviously the right side of the fabric. We've got the straight edge here, mostly matching the straight edge of the fabric at the bottom. And that's what we look like on the inside. So now what I'm going to do to keep everything nice and neat, I'm just going to trim back this fabric here to the zigzag stitches. So anything that's sort of overhanging, I just trim it away. And I'm actually going to use my applique scissors for that, which are these funny looking scissors here, which I actually find really useful for this sort of thing. I use these so much. Basically they just stop you cutting any layers underneath, and in this case the elastic. So yeah, I've just trimmed the lining and the fabric back on the inside of the bra. So now what I'm going to do is just fold this elastic under to the inside, and now all you can see is the PKs of the elastic there. And I'm just going to top stitch again along this elastic here using the same 3-step zigzag stitch. In fact, I might make it a little narrower, so now it's 3.5 width, but this is all personal preference, so you can decide what you like. And then I'm just going to sew it. Not going to stretch the elastic towards me this time. What I'm going to do is guide the elastic through from behind. Just make sure it's all sitting flat. Folded over nice and evenly. So there we are, I've got the elastic sewn across the bottom on now. It's looking very neat and I'm very pleased with it. So what I'm going to do now is take the 2 centre backs and put them together. I'm just going to neaten this seam up slightly. I'm just trimming it with my blunt scissors. Does not like it. I think I cut too much elastic with these scissors and it doesn't like it. Okay, so what we need to do basically is make sure that once all the elastic is sewn onto the top that it still fits the same width as this bra closure. Now extra has been sort of allowed on this pattern, so I don't have to give a specific width. If you've got a preference on a wider elastic or a thinner elastic, then you can kind of adapt that to suit you. So what then you do need to do is make sure that your bra closure is going to fit. So I'm just going to pop some pins in as well, because this is important that when we trim it down that it's symmetrical as well at the back. So I'm just going to hold that to the centre back, and you can do this flat with a rotary cutter, but I'm just gonna put a snip in there so I know where it is. That's the correct width at the back. And now what I'm going to do is just taper this up into the rest of the edge, and hopefully make it look nice and neat. There we go. I'm trying to cut through a pin. No wonder these scissors are blunt, they do get abused. Okay. And I'm just going to taper this into the top edge like that, and just keep trimming until you've got it looking how you want it. There we go. So now you can see that that's the correct width, because if you're sewing fold over elastic along the top, it's not going to add or take anything away, you're kind of just binding the edge, so it'll be the same width. So there we go. So the first part of fold over elastic that I'm going to apply to the bra is in this V shape here. So this needs to be cut 2 centimetres shorter than the length of the fabric. So I'm just going to hold it to the bust seam, just slightly over, just to give me a bit so I can sew it on, and then fold it sort of there, basically like we did with the band. You're just running the elastic along the edge, and then I'm just going to eyeball about 2 centimetres, and I'm going to cut it there. So now I need to decide which side is going to be the visible side, so the right side we'll call it, of the fold over elastic. I'm going to use the shiny side. I think it will go nicely with my unicorn fabric. So I'm going to place the matte side to the inside of the fabric, but first what I'm going to do is just place a pin in the centre of the elastic, just like I did with the band, with the picot elastic for the band, just to match that up with the centre front. Just ensures everything's nice and evenly sewn on and nice and neat. So I'm going to take now what is the wrong side of the elastic, you can use the matte side, that's up to you, and place it to the edge of this fabric here, so it's like to the inside, so it's actually resting against the lining. Just matching that up with the top, and the raw edge of the fabric now is going to run along the fold line in the elastic. So it's kind of sitting halfway up. And I'm going to use a 3-step zigzag stitch, just like I did before. And I'm going to pop that under my machine foot. So just like before, I'm going to do a few stitches to hold the elastic in place before I start pulling it. I've got my sewing machine set to a 3-step zigzag stitch, 3.5 width, 2.5 length. And now I'm just going to sew along this. So I'm stretching the pin, where the pin is in the elastic, I'm stretching that to the centre front seam and holding that in place, and then sort of positioning this fabric so the raw edge sits along the fold line in the elastic. I'm just going to sew along the edge. Don't sew any stitches sort of over the edge of the fabric. You don't want to sort of disappear off onto the other side of the elastic. Just sew along the edge of the fabric. So I'm just stretching my elastic. It turns out it just sort of stretches it slightly because you're only taking sort of a centimetre off each side really. You don't want this to be gathered, you just want a little bit of a tension applied. There we go. So I'm at the centre front and I've just put my machine needle down. What I'm going to do is lift the foot up, pivot the work round underneath, and then put the foot back down like that. Then take the end of the elastic to the end of sort of where the top of the bust seam is, stretch that out just as before, and then just carry on sewing. That's how we create a nice neat nice neat sort of curve at that centre front seam. So there we are, that's what we look like at this point. So I'm just going to trim the fabric back to the zigzag stitches. This is very similar to what we did on the bottom of the bra just now. There we are, just trim that back. This is just so it creates a nice neat fold. When we fold the elastic down to the right side of the fabric, we don't want it sort of bulging and looking wobbly, and if this hasn't been trimmed back, it can create a wobbly edge, which you do not want. So now what I'm going to do is take this fold over elastic and fold it over, folding it down to the right side, and I'm just going to top stitch along this folded edge, just sort of in the middle between the edge and the edge. So I'm using the same 3-step zigzag stitch here, and I'm not going to stretch the elastic this time. What I'm going to do is just guide it through from behind the foot. You don't want to be stretching the elastic towards you on the second time through. That's how it ends up a little bit wobbly. But sort of just pull it through from behind. Again, we're going to pause at the centre front seam with the needle down, foot up, pivot the work round, and then carry on. Fiddly fiddly, there we go. To the end. There you have it. So the same kind of process with this edge. I'm just going to take my fold over elastic and run it along the edge. Now we only want to cut this fold over elastic, and you'll see why in a second, just 1 centimetre shorter than the length of that edge. So I've just eyeballed that. You can kind of guess a centimetre. If you guess, you won't be far off. So now what we're going to do is apply, obviously you want it the same way round as there. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's a style choice. That's up to you. But what you want to do is leave an overhang of 2 centimetres of fold over elastic here at the bust seam. So I'm going to start sewing here, where this fold over elastic meets this fold over elastic, and then same sort of thing again, just 3-step zigzag stitch all the way along this fabric edge, keeping the edge of this fabric to the fold line in the elastic. So I'll pop that under the foot with the overhang. Don't forget the overhang. There we go. Do a few stitches to start you off, and then you want to stretch your elastic to the same length as the fabric, so just grab the ends, centre back seam, the end of the elastic, put them level, stretch the elastic to the right length, and sew. That's what we look like here. Going to trim the fabric back to the stitches again. Take all the pins away now. So there we are, I've just trimmed the fabric back to the zigzag stitches, just like we did when we applied this fold over elastic here. I'm going to fold this edge over, and then I'm going to sew all the way along the fold over elastic. It doesn't have to necessarily go right up to the end if that's a bit awkward for you, getting your fingers under and getting it going and things, but just sew all along the fold over elastic as much as you can. I'm going to start about there, just past where the fold over elastic starts, but then you can sort of guide it through with your threads a little bit. There we go, straight over. Good girl. Oh no, I've got stuck, spoke too soon. There we go, just give your sewing machine a little bit of help. It can get a little bit bulky there, but it will be absolutely fine. Just give it a little pull. There we go. Guide the fold over elastic through from behind the foot and don't pull on it at the front. It might look like I'm pulling over it. All I'm doing is just keeping this edge folded down and just keeping it flat. I'm not pulling on it at all. So I'm just going to repeat this step with the other side. Okay, so I'm about to apply my back closure. I'm just trimming, ooh, that disappeared. I'm just trimming down my fold over elastic, making the back nice and neat. It's not going to help trying to attach your back closure if your back is not neat. So very importantly with your back closure, you need to make sure you sew it on the right way round, because if you sew it on the wrong way and you're so used to putting it on like with shop bought bras, you will not be able to put on your own bra if you get it backwards. So you want your eyes facing up, as in out, so like that. I think that's the easiest way I can say it to you. Eyes facing out, right side fabric out. On the left side of the bra as if it's folded like you were going to wear it. So I've got these little ones where you can open it out like that and pop your raw edges inside, which is super neat. So there we go. Get this out of the way. So I've got my sewing machine set to a small zigzag stitch. So this is sort of personal preference. You can use a straight stitch, but I like to use a zigzag stitch. So I've got my width set to 2 and my length set to 2. You don't want to sort of spread this out too much because it's going to have quite a bit of pressure on this sort of edge here, so you don't want to have it too loose and it comes off or gradually wears down and then you end up with doing, you know, anything like that. So I've got it all lined up like that, so the top of the fold over elastic is going nicely into the edge of here and the bottom is nicely at the bottom of the closure. Nice and neat. So I'm sewing so my sort of when it comes down on the left side of the zigzag from where I'm sat, so left over here, yep, that's left, it's going to sit just in from this folded edge. You don't want to overlap, unless you do. I don't. You just want it to sort of sit along this edge and a nice little zigzag here. That looks nice and neat. So don't forget to do a few stitches at the start. Your machine probably won't be able to help itself. It will do that automatically because it's like trying to sew through fold over elastic and it probably won't enjoy that too much to start off with. Once it gets going though, absolutely no problems, and then just sew in a nice straight line all the way to the end. Don't forget to go back on yourself a couple of times, why not, and that is what you will end up with. Okay, so now it's time to sew on the hooks, and what you want to do, you want them, if you're sort of looking from the outside of the bra, you want them face down. However, you do want to work on them from this side. So the inside of your bra hooks face up. That's because if they're face down, you're going to be scraping along your sewing machine. You don't want to do that because it's going to be awkward to sew and you don't want to damage your machine. So again, I'm going to pop them inside. Now I have swapped my sewing foot, my machine foot for my zipper foot. This is so I can get sort of close enough. With the big foot you have to sew in the middle, which means your foot's kind of wanting to go over where the hooks are, which means it's just not going to happen. So I've got my zigzag foot. I've got my zipper foot on my sewing machine. I'm just going to do exactly the same again, just the same width zigzag stitch. Now this side admittedly is a little trickier because it's often bumpy around here and sometimes this isn't quite long enough and your sewing machine kind of, your foot wants to go around these hooks and can get a bit wobbly. So this is admittedly the more difficult side, but I believe in you, you can do it. So there we are, a couple of stitches to start off with. And it's already wanting to go off at a funny angle. Sometimes the way to get a completely straight line is to like sew at a completely weird angle. Don't ask me why, I don't know, but it works for me. So it might work for you too. There we go. So there's the back closure sewn on. Not too painful. There we are, you can see it in action. So I've cut all my strap elastic to the right length, so I've got two lengths of 45 centimetres, which is 18 inches, and two 8 centimetres, which is 3 inches. So the first thing I'm going to do is take two rings. So it's very important that these rings are the same width as your elastic. That's how you know what size you need. So I'm just going to thread this piece of elastic. This is one of my short pieces. Thread the ring on it halfway, fold it back on itself so the ends meet. And there we are. So I'm just going to sew across the bottom, but to speed things up, I'm going to do them both at the same time because I need two, obviously one for each side. Then just with a straight stitch, I'm going to sew just across the ends of each of these, just to hold them together in this shape and to hold the ring on. So I'm making sure to back tack, and I'm going over these just a couple of times, and then just to speed things up I'm going to push them through at the same time, just going back and forwards over the join just to make sure that they're both not going to come undone. So there we are. Oh, don't you just love the sound of pins hitting the floor? So yeah, I've got two little things there with rings on now. Pop those to one side for a second. So then we're going to take one of the longer pieces of elastic and thread a slider onto the end of it. So I'm going up one side of the slider and back down the other, keeping the elastic back to back. So if your elastic is shiny, that's the side that sort of you can see as it goes through the slider. Do the same again with the other one, just to keep everything much more simplified. It's much easier if you do it in one go. So this makes it much easier to get them all exactly level and all sewn in the same place and all neat. So they're basically stuck together. I have to cut them apart. So now I'm going to assemble the adjustable strap. So I've got my long piece of elastic here, and I'm going to take one of the short pieces with the ring, and I'm going to thread the end of the elastic, the end without the slider, through, and then keeping the elastic back to back, I'm going to just fold it straight back through the slider. So up one side and then back down the other. So it'll look like that. And when you wear it, it'll probably be somewhere around there. And you can slide it up and down to adjust the length of it, of course. So there we are, that's what it'll look like. I'm just going to do the same for the other side. Another strap. They may look complicated, but actually adjustable straps are very simple and satisfying to make because they always look so good. There we go. So now we're going to attach it to the bra. So I'm going to attach it to the front first. So I'm putting one of my straps aside for the moment. So take the front of your bra and the shiny side of the elastic, if it's shiny, or just the front, the side that you're going to see when you're wearing it. And we've got this little tab at the top of the fold over elastic here. So I'm going to place sort of an equal amount, but not in the same direction as the fold over elastic, but sort of like that. So it's straight up the bra if you kind of position that from the band. And then we're just going to sew a row of stitches across this, and it basically just sews across this point here, so it kind of flattens it out, if that makes sense. So we're going to sew a straight line of stitches there so that when we fold it under, it looks nice and neat, like that. There we are, I've sewn over that a few times just to keep it secure. It's going to have a lot of pressure on this part. So I've just trimmed back the fold over elastic on the inside, but not the strap elastic. So I'm going to fold that under, and then using a zigzag stitch, I'm just going to sew over this join here, just to keep that strap elastic in the right direction. Again, you want to do this a few times just to get it nice and secure. And it will be a little bit bulky, so you might find that bit a little bit tricky, but there we go. And now from the inside of the bra, I'm just going to cut back the excess strap elastic to the zigzag stitches, make it all nice and neat on the inside. So the last step is to sew the straps to the back of the bra, so make sure they aren't twisted. Now there is a dot on the paper pattern piece of where to sew your strap, but I'm just going to eyeball it and I'm going to put it around there. If you aren't sure, do reference the pattern piece. There is a little dot for each size on where you need to sew it. So that again needs to sort of go straight. So obviously this edge of the fold over elastic kind of goes up at an angle, but you want it to sit sort of straight on where the band is. So there we go, it looks sort of like that. I'm just going to sew it on along the fold over elastic using a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to make this slightly wider than I've just used for the front. So I'm going to make that a width of 3.5 and a length of 2, and I'm going to go back and forwards just a few times to make sure it's nice and secure. There we are, I've gone over that a fair few times, and because my thread is so closely matched with the fold over elastic, you can't even tell, which is just a bonus. Although if you do it quite neatly, it doesn't look bad anyway. Then on this bit here, I'm just going to trim this back to sort of where the fold over elastic is to make it nice and neat. It just goes everywhere when you cut anything. There we go. Make it nice and neat on the inside. And now I'm just going to do the same. So because I eyeballed it and didn't really go where, you know, I haven't marked with a pin or anything, I'm just going to fold it like that. And so where the start of the bra closure is, where that sort of joins, I've lined that up. Make sure it's not twisted. And then I'm just going to pop it there. And then just sew it a few times again. There we are. Completely sewn. So I am just going to hand sew a little bow to the front. All finished. So this is just the classic style, the simplest style, just the basic style rather, that comes with my Willow pattern. So I really hope this tutorial has helped someone, and that you've enjoyed this pattern as much as me. So thanks for watching, guys. Catch you next time.